It's one of those things where it's like once you have that experience for yourself, it's very often that people are like, wow, I want to share this. And that was me. I had this experience where I basically, like I said, learned how to love myself again, and got in touch with who I am and my power. And I was doing a lot of other things in my life to really mute that and dull that out. And getting reconnected with that was super transformative and empowering. And I was like, I got to share this with people. And
You're listening to the Live Life Longer show with Dan Voss, inspiring you to a new way of living through breathwork, cold exposure, nature, and plant medicine. In this week's episode, my guest is Reis Paluso. As a surfer, husband, father of 2 young girls, and a serial entrepreneur, Reis found himself searching for a way to maintain balance in life. After being introduced to the Wim Hof Method, he reignited a mind-body connection that he lost over time and opened up a journey of unlocking his true potential. After a deep exploration of the Wim Hof Method, including 2 trips to Poland, where he summited frozen mountains in sub-zero temperatures wearing only shorts, and learned to love himself again, Reis realized that this was really just the tip of the iceberg. The rabbit hole of breathwork and human optimization was blown open. Reis quickly became fascinated by all types of breathwork and began experiencing as many breathing methods and schools of breath as possible. He has been fortunate to study with some of the leaders in the field like Casper van der Meulen, Dan Bruhl, and Brian McKenzie. Reis works privately with clients, including individuals and groups, and is also the co-founder and CEO of a breathwork community called Our Breath Collective. Reis, welcome to the Live Life Longer show.
thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really happy we connected, and I'm just really excited for this conversation, knowing your work and your background, and just having the opportunity to learn more about how you got into this space, what that transformation was like. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into that deeper, learn a little bit more about Wim Hof Method and breath work, and really just your journey throughout it all. So I'd love to start with that, of how you got introduced to Wim Hof Method. And I love hearing people's stories of like who they were and what life they were living before Wim Hof Method. And then, what happened during that transformation for you. So if you'd like to share a little bit more about how you got introduced to Wim Hof Method.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, and love talking about this stuff. So super excited to be here. As you read in my bio, I'm a father of 2, got 2 girls, 9 and almost 6. And I've been an athlete my whole life, grew up playing sports, every sport under the sun. And, over time you kind of find your space within all of that. And surfing has kind of really always been my go-to, probably since I was 16 years old. Still did a lot of other sports, but that was kind of the thing where I put a lot of my attention and passion into. And about 5 years ago, I was running a digital marketing agency that I co-founded, and simultaneously had started a organic sunscreen company out of my garage. And so just spending a lot of time working and focusing on that, plus having 2 young kids, and just the time that I got to spend surfing was just decreasing more and more. And that was always just like the connection to nature and getting outside and doing something that I loved, and was really just searching for something. I didn't know what. I've done a lot of different work, so to speak, over my life, and knew that there's something for me. I just didn't quite know what it was. And I heard Wim on a podcast, as you've probably experienced. He's quite a character. And I was just like, dude, this guy's got some mojo and I want some of that. And through the surfing community, seeing him popping up, people like Kelly Slater and other professional surfers getting into the method and doing the breath work. And so it just kind of like caught me, and I was just, I gotta check this out, and went home and told my wife. And she had mentioned that one of our friends was just telling her about it. So I called him, or actually I sent him an email because we weren't super close at the time, and said, "Hey, heard you do the Wim Hof method." And his reply to me was, "Oh yeah, bro, you want a life upgrade? Here we go." So he came over, we did one breathing session, and the rest was history. I went somewhere else that I haven't touched or hadn't touched in maybe my whole life, and dove in, and I went through Wim's original 10-week online course in 10 days and was just like, I was hooked. So it
Yeah.
went from there. I met Casper Vandermeulen, who was kind of Wim's right hand guy. He was teaching all the teachers, and I wanted to see Wim in person, but my schedule didn't align at the time when he was coming to LA, and just so happened that there was a workshop by this guy Casper. I didn't know him, and ended up there, and it was really like, I don't know if you've done the original 10-week course of Wim's or
I'm in
not.
the middle of it right now.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the OG one was like there wasn't a lot of instruction. It was just kind of Wim doing his thing, and
Yeah.
so as humans, we just want to know if we're doing it right. So that was kind of why I wanted to go and just learn from someone who was teaching it. And
Hmm.
lo and behold, Casper blew my mind and just kind of sparked a relationship with him. And I ended up staying for an extra day and doing, and then the next day he was doing like a masterclass, Wim Hof masterclass. So I stayed for that, and then was like, okay, what's next, And so he said, well, I'm going to Poland, you should come, and just immediately signed up and went there, which
It's
was
so cool.
getting super out of my comfort zone. I'm not a person who likes to be alone. Never have traveled really by myself prior to that, and went to a foreign land of Poland, somewhere that I never thought I would end up, and that's kind of where really I would say the transformation began. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's so cool. I love hearing that transformation story of different people that are either instructors or they're just passionate about Wim Hof Method, because we all have our own story and background and where we were and how we discovered it. I discovered Wim Hof on a podcast as well, on Lewis House's podcast, and then just started learning more about him. And then once I started my podcast, had a few other instructors on, and then it kind of just snowballed to, obviously I'm not as further along the journey as you are, and some of that, initial discovery might not have been as extensive as your story, but I definitely resonate with that piece of you just get hooked.
yeah,
You have that, especially that first experience when you do it. Um, it's honestly, it's a feeling like none other. Like I honestly can't even put it into words until you experience it.
yeah,
And I've had so many conversations with different people trying to share with them what I get out of it and the benefits and the experiences. And at the end of it, a lot of them are just like, it's still crazy to me. Like, it still sounds too crazy for me to try it. And then some of them do try it, and then they'll come back and they'll be like, dude, I'm so happy you introduced this to me because now I'm hooked. And
yeah.
it's just an amazing thing. It's a really great community too.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, like you said, you can't really describe it, and it's super empowering. I mean, breathwork in general really is,
Yeah.
and to your point of like a lot of people are, it's a little bit daunting. I think um, being that there's this cold piece to it, I think for a lot of people is like, what? No way, and just thinking about using your breath in a controlled way, like we do when we're doing the breath work part of Wim Hof or any other breathing, we're
Hmm.
that's not something we're ever really taught or we're ever shown that we can use our breath as a tool. So it's like kind of this weird thing where people are like, "What, dude? What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And um, but that's the beauty of what Wim has done is using science to show. And for someone who maybe it seems a little bit woo woo or outside of the box, there's this science piece that can bring a little bit more of that practicality to it. And now it's just like the science is exploding because of the interest, and thanks to James Nestor and his book Breath, and the work that a lot of others are doing, it's becoming more mainstream. I see breathwork It's sort of like what yoga was 20 years ago, except it's going to accelerate exponentially faster. It already is.
Mm,
But it's so easy, it's right here with us all the time. And all we
yeah.
have to do is tune in, and it can be 1 minute, it can be 20 minutes, it can be an hour, and just when you start to learn how to use it, and you develop a practice, you just create awareness. And once you have awareness, then it becomes a tool. Um,
Yeah.
but Wim, obviously, he's this man on a mission, if you will, and he's doing so much for the community, and just putting himself out there the way that he does. And yeah, it's pretty awesome to be a part of. And I'm always like kind of just reflecting on that, and just being super grateful to have taken the steps myself. And
Mm,
then what I see through something like breath work, where it can be super healing, or even as you mentioned, plant medicine. It's one of those things where it's like, once you have that experience for yourself, it's very often that people are like, wow, I want to share this. And that was me.
yeah.
I had this experience where I basically, like I said, learned how to love myself again, and got in touch with who I am and my power. And I was doing a lot of other things in my life to really mute that and dull that out. And
Mm,
getting reconnected with that was super transformative and empowering. And I was like, I got to share this with people. And really in my life, I've been a connector of people. And so I saw it as a great opportunity. It's not, I've never taught anything before. But now, like, my whole life has basically turned into into that. So it's wild. It's been
yeah.
quite a journey, and looking forward to continuing it and forging ahead.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. I love you sharing how you, like, in that transformation, you learn to love yourself again and discover who you are. I feel like I'm going through some of that right now in terms of just career and my lifestyle and who I want to be in my day to day life and what actions I want to take. I'm learning so much, and we always are, right? I don't think we ever truly figure that out. But right now, in the last year or so, is big transformation for me. So I totally resonate with what you're saying. And then when you discover things like whether it's breath work or cold exposure, and it has such an impact on who you are and your lifestyle, and you see all of those benefits, it's hard not to want to share that with everyone that you know and love, because you're getting so much out of it and you want that for everybody else. And even if it's not for them and they end up not liking it, at least you made an attempt to share something with the people that you love that has truly changed your life.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
I
a real
also feel
there's
like,
a real skill in that too, of like sharing something that you're passionate about, and not trying to force someone into it. So
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And yeah, like I said, it might not be for everybody. So you have to present it in a way where you can share with them if they're interested, um, but also not force it into their life
mhm.
because it might not be for them. But I do think, and I'd love to hear your opinions on what I'm about to say. I do think that breathwork and then Wim Hof, and obviously that's just one kind of method of breathwork, and then you have the cold exposure, but just that whole package, I honestly believe that it can change the world. And again, it might not be for everybody, but if most of us practice it, maybe not every single day, but at least on a semi-regular basis, and allowed it into our lives and embraced the things and the benefits that it gives us, I honestly think it can change the world in the sense that for me, it makes me happier. It makes me more wholesome. It makes me more aware. I'm more patient. I'm more kind. And I can handle and work through stress better. And if everybody did this, what a world we'd be living in, I think.
100%. Yeah, I mean, you just hear stories of really anyone who dives in and experiences it and goes for it, that it changes their life, and for good
Yep.
reason. I mean, there's a lot of things within it that are benefiting us. And really, what I love about Wim is he's just like, dude, you're taking the power back. And that's really what we are.
Mm.
We've given our power away to a lot of different areas in life, and so now it's time to reclaim that and reestablish ourselves as human beings and what we're actually capable of, um, because it's all in here, right? We got it.
Yeah.
And so we're not taught how to access that. We're not taught how to use these things that we were built with, and we've become soft. And so doing some hard things, putting ourselves under this controlled stress that we do through getting in an ice bath, or even doing, more regulated breath work, we're just creating more capacity, more resilience, more space for us to actually step into being in power in a safe way.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
so much of it is about that safety. Because when we feel safe, then the magic starts to happen, and it's just getting like I said, it's like finding that way to get into someone to where then they can want to try it, that curiosity.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
once the curiosity starts, then there's just so many layers that you can add in that just keeps the ball rolling. And you know I love the Wim Hof Method. It's what got me into all of this, but I also see that there are some things within it that it's not for everyone. But there is a way to breathe, or to add other stressors in a
Mm-hmm.
more conducive way to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about kind of where I've moved into using the breath, and really finding a way to work with everyone and meet them at the place that they are, and then help bring them up, and then maybe something like the Wim Hof method makes more sense. But we can't expect everyone to want to get in an ice bath, or even take a cold
True.
shower. Like that for people is just like, what? No, why would
It's
I do
it's a
that?
daunting, yeah, it's a daunting idea, but I think if you can present it in a way that people can understand the comfortability that we always have in our life, right? In our 21st century lifestyle, where we are almost always in a climate controlled environment, right? We go from our climate controlled home into our climate controlled car to our
Mm-hmm.
climate controlled gym or grocery store or, workplace or office. And you get back into your climate controlled car and come back home. What does that do for us? It's not allowing our bodies to expand and to be put in a situation where we can handle stress, and that's what you're really doing with hormesis, whether breath work or cold exposure or intermittent fasting or whatever type of hormetic stressor you're practicing. You're putting your body into a situation where you can practice that stress safely, if ideally, and then when you get out into the real world and you face challenges in real stress of modern our life, you can then react to that or work through it a little easier. At least for me, that's been the main thing for me, is like seeing something that's super stressful that normally I would react to negatively, and now I can use breath work to process things and to be a little bit more intentional on how I react.
Yeah. And as you begin to practice more with these hormetic stressors, then you notice the resistance come up when there is something in front of you that you're like, nah, I don't want to do that. And then that's where the light bulb goes
Mm,
off for me, where I'm like, what's there? Like, why don't I want to do
yeah.
that? And then, wow, I can actually do that. For me,
Yep.
like going to climb a frozen mountain was like, dude, there's no way. I'm the guy I live in San Diego and I surf in the
Yep.
summertime in my wetsuit, like
Yep.
that was me. And then
Yep.
to do something like that, it was like, whoa, no way, and it's funny because when I went to Poland the first time, uh, when I was sitting waiting for my airplane in LA, I was like, all right, well, here's the challenge. Like, you're really getting out of your comfort zone. You're traveling by yourself. You're going to a foreign place with you don't know anyone, and just go for it. Like, do it.
Mm.
And anytime someone asks me to go in the cold, like there's a stream kind of thing you can go into, not far, like just a quick little walk. I literally went anytime someone asked me, and
Yeah.
just kind of was
And this
like,
was after.
this was in when I was there. I'm like, I'm
Got
gonna
it.
make the most of this. I'm just gonna do it, So I was like, I mean, I went in that stream so much. Me and this guy ended
Yeah.
up going in every night, and it was just like, we're here, let's go for it. And I think really from that experience and pushing myself in that way, I I really got to this place where I was like, okay, like I really can do so much more. Like I'm not as incapable as the monkey mind is telling me.
Mm.
So it's just a cool process, and um, as you said, we're always learning and
Yeah.
just continuing that to be open to that, and um, yeah, it's just it's going to be a cool thing to continue to watch how it shifts and changes, and how many people are getting impacted by it. And um, you know, one thing that came to mind, I forget what you were saying just a minute ago, but how you kind of affect people is really by like embodying it and being it, and so
Mm.
if you're really living into it and doing it and practicing it, and then the people that are very close to you are going to see the change, and then
Yeah.
it's like the ripple effect from there, right? They're going to see it and they're going to be like, oh, what's this guy got going on, what's he doing? And then the curiosity sparks, and they're like, maybe they start asking you questions, or they become more open, and then they try it, and then they have an experience, and then they share with their friends, and then their friend, so it starts to grow. And I've seen that within my community. Is like, I go to Poland, came back, and sort of started this like community within where I live of
Mm.
people. They saw me and they're like, oh wow. And then it just started to grow, and I started doing this thing called Ice Church at my house. And on Sundays, everyone could come over and pile in the garage, and we'd do some breath work, and then we'd get in my little freezer tank in the backyard, and just it kind of snowball ripple affected big time from there. And then that's kind of what's catapulted me into doing what I do. And over 4 years or of 5 years of really exploring this, it was like I went from being in this like digital marketing, social media, kind of pushing all that, to then like my whole interest changed, and it was like it doesn't align for me anymore,
Mm.
and for whatever reason, lucky enough to be able to find an exit out of that, and then also to
Yeah.
have started something in the midst of that, which being Our Breath Collective, which could allow me to really step into my purpose, or at least closer to what I feel my purpose is. I'm still, I guess, curious about that and exploring that, but definitely feel more in alignment now than I ever
Yeah.
have. And yeah, just super fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to do this and share it with people. And um, it's really, it's like the best thing that I've ever done.
It's so cool. When you find something that you just know and you feel that it's in alignment with who you are as a person, in what you want to do and what you're meant to do. And again, as you said, like maybe you're still kind of discovering that a little bit. I think we always are.
Yeah.
But it's definitely more aligned than maybe things you've worked on in the past, maybe your digital marketing agency in the past. I actually, side note, I used to work for a digital marketing company for a little while. And then you discover something, whether it's in health, or for us, it's, breath work and cold exposure. And it just, you have that feeling like it's like a connector, right? Like it's like two Legos coming together and they just like fit perfectly. Do you feel that same way? And then also, do you feel like everything's become not necessarily easier, because I don't think the work is easy, but do you feel like the universe kind of just like nicely and gently pushes everything toward you of what you want and need and desire, because of the fact that you've discovered something that aligns with who you are, and you're pursuing it. And then now that you are pursuing it, the universe just kind of nudges you along and pushes you into the right direction. Do you feel that at all, or am I
Yes.
talking woo?
No, I definitely feel that, and I feel like I'm living that day to day.
That's awesome.
It's interesting how that happens when you do find your purpose and align yourself to it. And there's bumps in the road. It's not all unicorns and rainbows. It can be challenging, but if you trust and believe in that and in yourself, then I think the universe, for whatever reason, is going to help you along the way. And there are, I think the practices that we're talking about here are sort of setting you up to be able to deal with those bumps in the road, and to also be able to take risks, calculated risks, controlled risks, or at least as controlled as they can be. You can take those on in a different way, and then it might not be as tumultuous of a change or a transition as maybe it would have been without the practices. But I also think without the practices, you probably wouldn't have come to the place where you're feeling like you're closer to that purpose anyway. So
Wow, that's such a good point. I never even thought of it that way, that the practices that we are talking about, especially the example of you going to Poland and you're hiking in these freezing, really cold temperatures in shorts, something you never thought you'd be able to do. Obviously that does something for your confidence, right? And then you can use that as a tool to do things that you thought you would never be able to do, like start a business or go down a career path that might be a little bit risky, or financially risky, or maybe it's more of a crowded market than something that's that's safer and more lucrative. You're giving yourself that confidence because of the practices that you're doing on a daily basis to go apply that to the real world. It's a great example. I never even thought of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's all interconnected, and the practices
For sure.
are bringing us closer to our power, bringing us closer to who we really are, and so of course those other things start showing up. The opportunities, and the path becomes illuminated in a different way. But
100%.
you also have to be curious and open and looking around, and not just focused on doing it right and all those things. It all comes into play. But the practices they create more capacity for us to be us.
Yeah, I love that. Going back to breath work, you said a few phrases that really stood out. You were talking about how breath work can be a tool, and you also mentioned something along the lines of that it's with us. It's always with us, that we can now, once you learn how to tap into it, you can tap into it anytime, anywhere. And I feel that now. And I shared with you the example of like normally being really reactive. Now I can just take deep breaths and think about what's going on, be a little bit more intentional with how I react. And I do believe that it's made me more patient and more kind, more understanding, more compassionate. So my question is for you, and for anybody that's listening that's like, why get into this? I'm not really sold. Why start a breath practice to begin with? Hey guys, I want to take a quick second to tell you about Blossom Wellness, a mental health hygiene company that gives people the tools they need to better manage feelings of stress, anxiety, and mental burnout. Their signature product, Bliss Blend, is formulated with lion's mane, reishi mushroom, and full spectrum CBD oil to aid in reducing feelings of stress and anxiety, boosting immunity, and supporting brain health. This is my personal favorite CBD product, as it provides a nice blend of calmness along with focus and mental clarity throughout the day. To try Blossom, go to blossomwellness.co and use the code DANVOSS, that's DANVOSS, at checkout for 10% off all orders.
Well, if you think about your breath, it's the first thing you do when you come into this world. You can't really go more than a couple minutes without it through your whole entire life, and it's the last thing you do when you die. And
Mm.
somehow, some reason, we've overlooked that. That it's like that simple fact that we can't really go very long without it. That like takes priority over everything else of functioning human or
Mm.
living being or animal or whatever. And so there's power within that. And so now we're just kind of waking back up to that and exploring that. And, when I said using the breath as a tool, the way I like to look at the breath is through like more of a principle based approach. So once you understand the principles of breathing from your physiology, the mechanics of breathing, and really how it ladders up to your nervous system, then it becomes a tool because based on where you are, then you can shift directions. You can change your state of being. You can
Mm.
move more into the direction that you want rather than being hit like a Mack truck and just like, I don't know, I'm just feeling like you're kind of throttled and helpless. It's like, no, here's this thing that's with us at all times. We don't have to go anywhere for it. We don't have to go to a gym or change our clothes or do anything. It's just like, boom, we can just tap into it. And so by having a practice with it, you create a relationship with it. You begin to understand it. You inherently begin to understand yourself a lot more. You're gaining access to all these different things that are happening in your body, and you can then change it. And it's just like anything. If we practice something, then we get better at it. And so by having a consistent breath practice, it creates that added awareness, right? Because we're
Yeah.
creating this relationship with it, we're using it, we're feeling it, we're playing with it, we're manipulating it in different ways. Okay, what does this do, and what happens if I do this? And okay, right now I feel this, and then what happens if I use my breath now? And so it's just kind of, I always say it's the ultimate rabbit hole because once you dive in, there's never an end to exploring the breath. Every day is different. Every breath is different. Your nervous system is constantly fluctuating and changing, life circumstances, all these things. So, but if you have a practice with it where you're actually consciously doing it every day or, however often, um, then it you're the key is you're creating that awareness because then as
Mm.
soon as you become aware, then it becomes an opportunity to use it as a tool. So
Mm.
that's the way I like to share is like, hey, if you if you practice with it, then you create the awareness to then empower yourself to take the reins and take control,
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I like to look at it. And like I said, I think the Wim Hof method is great for certain things, but I don't think that that's for everyone. And it's like
Yeah.
so often you hear people in the method or even outside in whatever particular breath camp that they're in, be it Buteyko or rebirthing or transformation, whatever it is. It's like we have a tendency to get into this like this is the only way. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like I got into breathing through one method, but then it was like, okay, what else is here? I want to know how it all works. And if you're just caught in one thing, then you're missing all the other colors of the rainbow. And
Yep.
and so that's why I would call my approach like multidisciplinary.
Mm.
I've done rebirthing, I've done transformational, I've explored all like as many of the different methods as I can, but then it's like coming back, okay, where is the similarities here? And then understanding that to then create specific protocols or specific direction for people based on where they are. Because if we're trying to like retrofit someone into a particular way, it can be traumatizing or it can be counterproductive. Um, I'm not going to work with someone who has, maybe some physical ailments the same way that I'm going to work with someone who's like a performance athlete. I'm not. We can't expect people to be doing the same thing.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's cool.
it's just that's what I love about breathing. It's for
For
me
sure.
as a like a breath facilitator, a breath. I would call myself more of a breath mentor, or re-educator. Um, it's like this cool little puzzle that I get to look at someone, and it's like, okay, now how am I going to work with this person to benefit them in whatever goals that they have are.
Mm.
It's it's not about me and where I think they should go. It's like, okay, what do you want here? What are you trying to improve or work on, or and then let's work together to find your way of using the breath to empower that.
That's got to be one of the coolest things for the work that you're doing with individual clients is that you have your methodology that you've pulled from all these different breathing techniques, and then you have your own kind of methodology that you use with your clients, whether it's with individuals or group settings. But you can work with individuals that have different backgrounds, different stories. They have different traumas, different challenges, different needs and wants and outcomes that they want to get out of this practice. That's got to be probably one of the most fulfilling things for you is that you have this diversity from all these different people, that it's like not every individual is the same. You're going to face new challenges along the way.
Yeah, and I mean, in my life of career wise, work wise, it's like I find myself I go gung ho into something and then I get disinterested because it becomes redundant or the same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there are parts of marketing and social media that are awesome, where it's like you're constantly being creative and trying to figure out something. But for me, like working with an individual or a group and doing breath work, I don't really see an end to the evolution of it, and I don't really
Mm-hmm.
see it like getting to a point where it's like, yeah, this is I'm over this. I think that there will be other things that come into my life that I think can enhance that, whether it's something that I learn knowledge wise, or maybe a new skill or a new practice. But I think
Mm-hmm.
the breath is it's this thing that's gonna go through everything. It's like we've been leading a teacher training through our Breath Collective, really trying to create high level breath facilitators, because I think it's just becoming saturated with people who are just regurgitating information and don't
Yeah.
really understand it. And what we're seeing within that is like we have all these people who are coming in that already have like a profession where they're working with people, helping people, and they're just like, the breath is like, it's sort of the gateway into being able to work with them on deeper levels. We have a guy who's a
Mm-hmm.
hypnotherapist, and he came in because he had his own experience with breathing, where he was like, gosh, this is like, I can exponentially get to where I'm trying to go with someone so much faster, by just using a little bit of breath in the beginning, and then it's like, boom, here we are, we're getting down and dirty. And it's funny because he's finding his clients wanting more breath. So
That's great.
yeah, it's cool.
It's really cool.
It's so fun. I love it.
Going back to the different methods that we've been talking about, because you said that Wim Hof Method was how you were introduced into breathing, and then you went out and learned. You wanted to learn everything else about breathing. And you know how if you talk to a linguist, somebody that speaks several languages, they'll say once you learn that second language, it becomes a lot easier to learn a third and fourth and fifth language. Do you think that applies to breath work as well? Like you learned Wim Hof Method and then you went over to another one. And then once you start building up all these different pieces of breath work, do you feel like you were able to better understand and better utilize each of those individual methods because you now have a better understanding of each one individually? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess I'm trying to think of how to articulate this. I think that, like I said, there is a common thread between all of them, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
principles that they're all based upon, whether they know it or not. There's this common thread between all of it. So it's like, how do you get to the common thread? How do you learn
Yeah.
those pieces? Um, I always say like the Wim Hof Method is the gateway drug into breathing because you have this amazing character behind it, like larger than life dude who's out
Yeah.
there like doing crazy and then you have a very simple method behind it, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't take a lot to do it and to feel it, and so it's a great gateway for people to come in.
Yeah.
But I think that there's that within all the different methods. But I think, yeah, the more that you experience, the more that you um, put yourself into, then you're going to have a greater understanding across the board. Whether you're putting those dots together, okay, these are the principles, or this is kind of
Mm.
the underlying connection between all of them, you might not necessarily get to that point. Um, but in my opinion, I mean, that's why I did it. I was like, there's got to be more here. Like
Right.
I want to feel it all and do it all, or as much as I can. I don't think there's ever doing it all. But fortunate for me, my friend who got me into Wim Hof, that I said I hit him up, and we did our first breathe together. He
Mm-hmm.
actually came in through rebirthing, and so he's done rebirthing for 10 years prior.
Wow.
So it was, he kind of showed me, hey, here's like the Wim Hof method, and I dove into that. But then it was like, he's like, yeah, but there's also this, and so I feel like I was fortunate enough to be opened up to more possibility out of the gate. So I wasn't just stuck into one thing. And I mean, we did rebirthing sessions together. His teacher, I've done rebirthing sessions with. So then it was just like, okay, there's so much here, like,
Yeah.
and that sort of put me on this path that I feel so fortunate to have him really be sort of this mentor and getting me into all of this, and I think it's just really helped catapult my experiential side of breathing.
Yeah.
So
That's really cool.
that's that's what I just like, go try it. You hear
Yeah.
about it,
I
check
love
it
it.
out, go for it. And not everyone wants to have all the science or wants to have. There's something for everyone within it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. We have, speaking of science, we've talked a bit about some of the, I would say, mental health benefits of it. Maybe not mental health is the right word, but just in terms of, managing stress and mental clarity and being focused, things like that. What are some of the physical benefits that you're seeing with breath work in either yourself or the clients that you work with?
Well, one thing that I've noticed in working particularly with individuals is really we've lost touch with how to breathe properly, mechanically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And because of like circumstances and just the way that we live now, where it's just like high paced, go, 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 stress through the roof, all the
Yep.
things, that's transformed how we breathe. Having two little kids, I get to watch them breathe, and it's like I've just studied them,
Yeah.
because they haven't gone down this path of having these things that change mechanically, um, how we're supposed to be breathing. And so I think that is, I mean, that's always, not always, but that's usually the starting point for when I work with someone on an individual basis. It's like, okay, give them a little bit of a dose of like, here's how some different knobs and levers feel with your breathing, but then let's look at your mechanics, because once you can reestablish mechanics, then so many other things come back online and your body starts to work a little more optimally. Um, so I think just on a simple, very simple place to start is like looking at your breathing mechanics and beginning to understand how you can improve that and restoring proper breathing function, because then everything else sort of happens. Whether it's,
Yeah.
we talk so much about nasal breathing, belly breathing, which, is really just getting our diaphragm in the game, moving the breath down rather than being up in the chest. And, a great thing to do is just like breathe in front of your mirror or have someone record you with your phone and then watch how you're breathing. And then from there you can start to adjust and reestablish those mechanics. So I think like physically that's what I see a lot.
Yeah.
And even with like high performing athletes, pro athletes or people who are very physically fit, to be able to improve on what they're doing, it's like, okay, where's the breaking point? Where's the point where your mechanics go out the door? And then from there, it's like, okay, then we can work. We want to find that place, and then from there we can work to build, improve those mechanics at the point where you break down.
Love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. How about let's call it a breathing technique? We've talked about different methods, right? Where you would maybe be laying down intentional for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. What about anyone that's listening that they're like, hey, I just want a tool to use during the day, while I'm cooking or while I'm driving, or not that you should be doing breath methods during driving, but any part of the day where you're like, I just need to kind of reset. What's like a practical maybe technique that you would like to recommend to people?
I mean, really,
And I know there's a lot.
really, it's like just that like coherent resonant breath, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. As soon as you start to focus on counting, it's like you kind of bring yourself back. And the benefits of that rhythm of breath or cadence of breath, it's going to bring a lot of things into alignment. It slows our breathing down. And so, I mean, that's something you can do while you're driving, really. I mean, we don't want to hold our breath while we're driving, but, using some sort of count to where you bring your focus from being out wherever it is, where your thoughts are going, past or future, and it's like bringing it into the present moment, getting back in touch with the breath, and then it's sort of calming everything down. So that's just like a simple one. You could do that while you're washing dishes. You can, going on a walk, count your steps, inhale for however many steps, exhale for however many steps. And so it's sort of like a mini meditation, if you will. But that's just like a very simple practice. And it's something that if you do it for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, you feel all these things kind of happening very subtly. And
it's remarkable stuff.
Yeah, you notice the thoughts slow down, the everything kind of settles, and so to me that's just like a very simple, easy thing that anyone can do and can be impactful.
And there's so much practicality to it. Like for me, I love that for obviously podcasting, right? Like you need to have your breath kind of stabilized, and we're talking a lot within an hour time frame, so it's really nice for me to, like, even when I'm listening to you as you're speaking, I'll do that like real slow breathing in and real slow breathing out, and it just slows everything down. It makes it easier to gather my thoughts, makes it easier for me to speak. And that's just one example, is podcasting. You have professional athletes that can use this. If you're on stage, you can use this. If you're about to give a big presentation or go into a really important discussion with your spouse or your roommate or whatever, you can use these as tools to benefit your everyday life.
Right. And also keeping in mind that 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out might not be that something everyone can do.
True.
If we're super stressed out and our breath rate is, you know, fast, then doing that can be maybe super frustrating and get you mad and angry. So it's like, okay,
Mm.
well then count your breaths, how many seconds between breaths, meet yourself there, and then add 1 second to it, you know,
Yeah.
and go with that, and not try to fit yourself into like, okay, I can only do 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, you know. Find your edge and then click it back one so that you're kind of teetering, but it's not to the point where you're like, oh, F this, like I'm not doing this, you
Right.
know? And
Yep.
that's what we see a lot, right? Where we aren't necessarily meeting ourselves where we are, and that's super important. Uh, that's what I emphasize. Meet yourself where you
Yeah.
are, and then you can begin to change and adjust subtly,
Mm.
slowly, you know, rather than just like, okay, straight into it, you know.
Yep. Love it. That's great. We've talked about our Breath Collective a little bit in this conversation. Can you tell us a little bit more about our Breath Collective? I know you guys are doing retreats again this year.
Yeah.
You have education, online education. Tell us more about our Breath Collective.
So I got approached by two of my friends, actually my friend Luke Winston, who got me into the breathing that I mentioned in the beginning, and
Mm.
my friend Kimberly Johnson, and they had kind of come up with this idea to lead a daily breathing session. And it was like, okay, we already have our daily practice, and so why not share that with the world? That's the number one thing I get asked when I do a
Mm-hmm.
workshop or teach anyone, is like, what do you do every day and how do you do it? You know, like I can't establish a daily practice or whatever's getting in the way of that. So it was like, okay, well, we're already waking up and doing it. Let's just broadcast it. And so
Mm.
we created Our Breath Collective. It started as a daily breathe every morning, 6 a.m. Pacific time. One of the three of us would jump on and we'd lead a 12 to 15-minute breathing session to start your day. And from there, it just sort of blossomed into, we now have a bunch of different guides. We call them breath guides who lead, and we all kind of rotate. It's also developed into, as you said, like an education platform. We have workshops that we bring other people from the breathing community in to share their perspective. We run a Breathwork Intensive, which is a 4-week course really focused on the fundamentals, these principles that I talked about around breathing, with the intention of empowering a person to have a new relationship with the breath, to where maybe they don't even need us for our daily breathe. They can understand how the breath relates to them.
Mm.
And then this past year, we kicked off our breath school, which is a 6-month teacher training, which is, I think, the best thing that I've ever done in my life, at least the most rewarding and thing that I'm like most proud of professionally. It's been incredible. We're actually wrapping it up in a week from Saturday. We're ending it with a retreat. So it's been 5 months online, and now everyone's coming together for the first time, and it's going to be insane. Like the bonds and
Nice.
connections that everyone's created is been amazing. So, um, and so as we're looking at OBC and how it's going to transform, it's like, okay, well now, cool, we have a lot of new instructors that are coming through, and so we're going to be bringing them into being able to offer more than just one time per day. Some
Mm.
people are asking for like, hey, I live here and I can't breathe with you live, and so being able to offer more classes, daily sessions, and everything is recorded. So we have a group of people who are up every day breathing with us, and then people can catch it whenever they're ready for it, or they can go back to it in the day. And we've got a whole catalog of of breathes that people can go and check in on. And yeah, it's been amazing. You know, we started pre-COVID, which was interesting timing, really before everyone went online. So we already had this established community. We were kind of about 6 months ahead of the curve there. So we had this community underneath us. And then once COVID hit, you know, and people were having to be at home and just being in front of the computer and that sort of thing, the online learning space, it was like we kind of already had this beautiful base and awesome community. And so it's just kind of growing from there. And it's, yeah, I mean, I've changed my whole life into really just dedicating it towards that. And
Wow.
yeah, just really enjoying it. And we've got people pretty much on every continent now, and
That's awesome.
continuing to grow, and just the feedback and things that people are sharing. It's so powerful what's going on. And so much of it is like one to none, like us broadcasting to them. We don't do it on Zoom. We do it through another platform. So we can't necessarily see people. And so, but like people are just sharing with us like, oh my gosh, you know, and there is this undeniable sense of connection, even though you can't see someone else. Just knowing that there's other people there, you can see the little number of how many people. There's a little chat box so you can chat as you go. You start seeing people's names, and it's really cool to see how people are using it and sharing like, hey, gosh, like I don't know what I would do without this. We've had people who have left and then come back because they're like, I need it, you know, even if I'm not doing it every day, I know that it's there and I can go and access it. And then just having these other greater opportunities for people to learn and yeah, it's awesome. Super proud of it.
That's great.
And
Super cool.
yeah, so
And are you guys doing retreats again?
and we are doing retreats. We've got one coming up at the end of July. It'll be our first one, really kind of our first official like multi-day retreat. It's at this incredible property in Topanga, which is in Los Angeles, and they've got a cold plunge, barrel sauna, incredible like yoga space where we'll do the breath work, and it's just like in this beautiful nature spot. We've got, you know, farm to table like organic food, and beautiful accommodations, and there'll be a lot of other fun stuff going on. So yeah, there's
I love it.
still room if anyone wants to jump in and
Cool.
come experience it. And you know what I love about breathing is, yeah, it's great one-on-one or it's great online. There's nothing like breathing in a room with other people.
Yep.
It exponentially elevates the experience. It's so
I agree.
awesome. And to be able to guide in that space is super fun. And with, you know, my partners and everything, we're really psyched on it. So it'll be cool.
That's so cool. Yeah, I completely agree. There's nothing like experiencing breath work in a group setting. My group setting experience with breathwork is strictly with Wim Hof, and I'm working on expanding that to other experiences. But with Wim Hof, like I can do it at home on my own every day. He's got the app. I get a lot of use out of it, benefits out of it. But going to a workshop and doing it in a group setting with somebody facilitating it and guiding you, you can just let go of worrying about counting and numbers and anything like that, and you can just be. It's a totally different experience. It's really incredible stuff.
Yeah, you really can just drop in and not have to try to do anything other than just breathe and feel and experience it. It's really where it's at.
Yeah, I love it.
Always encourage people to, if they haven't done an in-person session, go find one somewhere.
Yep.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, it really is. It sounds like you're doing awesome stuff with our Breath Collective. That's something I'll be definitely checking out. And there's a website for that. Where can people head to find out about?
Yeah, it's ourbreathcollective.com, Our Breath
Cool.
Collective on Instagram. If people want to try it out, they can get $10 off. Just use my name, REIS, as a code. You can get $10 off your first month. You know, you get access to the daily breathes. You get free access to our workshops when we have them, discounts on other stuff, and yeah, just tapping into a cool community of people. One thing that I love about Casper, he always says, find the others, and so
Mm.
that's something I live by, and always am searching for my tribe. And our tribe is pretty awesome. I think you'll love it if you're interested in breathing at all. Like, it's
Mm.
pretty killer. So
That's awesome. I love that. And then before I get to my last question, where can people learn more about you? You have your own handles and your own website?
yeah, my Instagram is Reis Paluso, REISPALUSO. Website is reispaluso.com. Those are kind of the two main places to find me. And or you can reach out to OBC. That's me on the
Yep.
emails and the socials. So happy to
Awesome.
chat in any way. Yeah.
I love that. Very cool. So I like to wrap the conversation up with what your definition of health is, because I think it means something different for every person depending on where they're at in life. So what does health mean to you?
It's a great question. Something I've been pondering since you posed it to me a couple days ago. For me, like, health it's a lifestyle. It's not just like a
Mm.
one and done type of thing. It's not something that you find somewhere else either. It's within, and no one else is going to give it to you. So really, I guess in essence, you are the health if you want it. And
Mm-hmm.
what we're finding through breathing and these things is that we have the keys to the kingdom. We just need to relearn how to access it, and it's really a never-ending process. So that's why I say it's a lifestyle, and it's not easy, but it's one that can be very rewarding if you go for it, and
Mm.
can change your life for the better. So that's kind of how I would define health, at least currently.
I love
um,
it.
so yeah,
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, Reese, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and learn about your story, your background, your experiences, the work that you're doing. I just want to say thank you for joining me.
yeah. Thank you, Dan. It's a great gift that you're giving people, having these conversations, sharing your passion and exploring it. And I'm sure you get so much out of it too. And I got a lot
Mm.
out of it as well. Just, it's always nice to share with someone who understands and can ask questions that really like get you into the core
Mm.
of what you're all about. So appreciate you and all that you're up to, and thank you so much. It's a
Thanks,
privilege
man.
to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Right
Cool,
on.
man. You have a great day.
You too.